All right. Well, Dr. Wilson, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking through some things. I was thinking through just like the importance of what we would call like spiritual habits or spiritual disciplines. And I think it's something that Christians, we talk about a lot, but maybe don't have a full grasp of kind of like what that looks like, or we know we're supposed to do it, but we don't really know how. And so I just thought it'd be really good just to hear from you a little bit about what that's looked like for you, how you've maybe kind of adopted spiritual disciplines into your own life and how that's affected you over the course of your life, and just any like helpful insight you've learned along the way. So.
Okay. I became a Christian when I was young,
Hmm.
before I knew what discipline was,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
So grew up in a Christian home and we grew up reading the Bible and praying consistently in our home. So I'm very thankful for those kinds of things that are just kind of were natural to me pretty early. As a teenager, I had a pastor who invested in me pretty strongly, and we talked a lot about spiritual disciplines
Hmm.
and specifically reading the Bible. So I learned. I actually had grandparents and parents who were reading the Bible through consistently.
Oh,
Like
wow.
my grandparents read through the Bible every year,
Oh,
so I
wow.
was watching that and began to mimic that. I guess
Yeah.
I guess that's what it was to begin with.
Yeah.
Uh, when I was pretty early, as an 11, 12, 13-year old. So that was pretty natural. But my pastor in high school, he he kind of helped me to develop consistency in that regard, and gave me some accountability in that regard that
Hmm.
I hadn't really had before. He taught me a lot about scripture memory, and I wish I had hung on to
Yeah.
what he was teaching me in those, when I was 16, 17,
Mm.
18. I wish I'd kept up those patterns
Yeah.
consistently through my life. But sadly, I haven't kept up with that. But, well, all the time. So,
Yeah.
but, but praying, I was learning to pray and those things as well. I went to college that's similar to what Cal Baptist was in the earlier days, much smaller than Cal Baptist is now, but a similar kind of school in regard to mission and the things that they were encouraging in the lives of students. So I had people who were helping me in these regards as well. I would say during those college years, my practice of spiritual disciplines became very legalistic.
Mm.
So I was, I, I was on a schedule, and if I didn't keep that schedule, I was pretty harsh on myself.
Yeah.
Very, really, that legalistic approach to self discipline really developed a great deal of self judgment
Hmm.
in me that I carried that even when I stepped away from that legalism. I carried that self judgment
Hmm. Wow.
a lot, and but I developed even through that legalistic approach to to spiritual disciplines. I learned a lot about the practice of habits that are conducive for spiritual growth. So there was spiritual growth that was happening there, but I think I felt the negative effects of that legalism
Mm.
in pretty strong ways for a
Yeah.
long, long time. I don't know when I stepped away from that legalism,
Mm.
but I would guess it was probably when I was in my 30s that I began to recognize it
Mm.
and recognize what it was doing to me. And so I didn't, what often happens when somebody practices spiritual disciplines legalistically is when they get to the point of letting go of that legalism, they let go of the disciplines.
Oh yeah.
And that, I mean, I learned pretty early that letting go of the spiritual disciplines that are going to help me grow are not going to be helpful to me in my growth.
Yeah.
So that's going to lead me to kind of slide in regard to my maturity with Christ. And
When you say legalistically, I mean, I'm thinking you're like, I have to do these things in this order, this time, and it's like a checkbox, right? And if I miss a day, it's just I'm the worst person. Is
if
that
I
like,
missed the day,
yeah,
I found that when I missed a day, it usually led to me missing another day because I was just so harsh on myself, and that didn't make sense to me. I couldn't figure that out
yeah,
while I was practicing that legalism.
yeah,
Um, but but then I would find myself, it's been 3 weeks
yeah,
since I've really sat down and read my Bible, and or that I've even tried to pray apart from groups that I was a part of, and yeah, so that legalism was here are the things I've got to do.
yeah,
I've got to do this at this time and this time. So if I sleep 30 minutes late and I don't have time to read my Bible for class, then I'm just crud.
yeah,
And and I don't know. I don't know the psychology of
yeah,
legalism. I've never really stopped to think about that too much, but I know the practical effects of legalism in my own life. It didn't help me be productive with my spiritual disciplines. It actually was
wow,
counterproductive. But again, I'm really thankful that when I recognized that and tried to step away from that legalism, that I didn't just drop everything. So I knew enough to know that that would be disastrous for my relationship with the Lord. So, but at the point that I am in my life now, I feel free in the practice of spiritual disciplines. So so I have a pattern that I follow. I do the same kinds of things consistently. I start my day in the same place, generally around the same time,
yeah,
except on weekends.
yeah,
I'm usually a little bit later getting going on the weekends, but I'm still trying to start my day in the same place. I'm sitting on the bed these days. I'm sitting on the bed in the spare bedroom in our house, and that's where I'm reading my Bible. That's where I'm praying. My first prayers of the day are right there, and pushing into God's presence, usually through the Psalms, pushing into God's presence, waiting in His presence, not waiting for Him to do something, but
yeah,
waiting before Him, waiting with Him. So sometimes it's sitting quietly and just meditating, without having to say anything or without reading anything. But that time with the Lord, that first hour or so, I'm usually on that bed for about an hour. That is me, doing those things that I know I need to do to set my frame of mind for the day. I'm a good person. I'm not. I'm not going to go do something evil if I don't have that time with the Lord. But it's important. It's important to me to set the frame for my
yeah,
day, with being in His presence. Looking, gazing on the Lord is,
Mm,
that's terminology that the psalmist
yeah.
uses. Gazing on the Lord and letting Him set, what I am for the day.
Yeah. Why is it why is it so important? Because I imagine it is important to you mentioning like having a physical space that you actually go to that is consistent, right? At the beginning of every day. Like what's the significance of that? The spare bedroom, right? Going and sitting in there to start your day. Just curious.
Well, I think it has something to do with doing something with my body
Mm,
helps to frame what's happening in my spirit.
that's good.
So Jason Whitmer Early has a couple of books. I call him the habits guy. He
Yeah.
talks about habits, and he's got a new book that's coming out soon
Nice.
that talks about our spirit following our body, us doing things in the body that are going to
Yeah.
pull our spirit along with it. And I think there's something in that. One of his habits is that I've tried to adopt is to start my first moments of my day when I pull myself out of my bed, I do what he suggested. I drop to my knees
Mm,
and I say a, a prayer, not a long
mm,
prayer,
yeah.
but just kind of a here I am.
Mm,
You are God. You are a holy God, and you've called
mm,
me to be holy. So make me holy as you are
mm,
holy today. It's usually a little bit more than that, but not much more than that.
yeah.
Justin in his book talks about, and I've heard him say it on podcast too, that often he's got four boys.
Yeah.
Often those boys join him,
Yeah.
and that keeps his prayer short. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
but he starts his day there and he ends his day there.
Mm,
So I think just doing something physically, and that's what he said. That's what he says. Dropping to my knees,
mm-hmm.
putting myself in that posture
Mm,
of submission before God as the first thing that I do and the last thing that I do every day is significant in me turning my heart to God.
yeah.
So I I've started doing that in the past 6 months or so.
Oh, nice.
It's the first thing that happens when I come out of bed. So
Wow.
and sometimes I have to get somewhere else pretty quickly, but
Yeah, sure.
uh,
Yeah.
but that's that's my first moments,
Hmm.
and I think my body, I'm allowing my body to lead my spirit.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. I think of that probably being like a really helpful approach when it comes to like a lot of these spiritual disciplines, because I think that's really what we're doing at the end of the day is like we're posturing ourselves, to really reflect the reality that we live, in God's kingdom. And that's a thought I have quite consistently. Each morning it's like trying to remind myself I'm here in God's kingdom. This is not my kingdom. But I think that's super helpful too, because I think for a lot of us, maybe there's one of the barriers to like consistently engaging in some of these spiritual habits or disciplines is, what do we do when we don't feel, like God's near, or we don't feel like we want to do that? I think about I had knee surgery in high school, and I remember being in bed for like 3 days. And finally, my parents were like, "Hey, you got to get up. You got to move that thing." And I'm like, I don't want to do it. It's
Yeah,
painful. And eventually I came to my senses that if I don't do this now, it's going to be so much harder to do later, or it could set me up for some serious knee issues, obviously. So, but I wonder, like, I think sometimes it's a very common sentiment when approaching things like this is like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't feel like doing it. Or I don't feel close to God. Um, what would you like encourage students that maybe are, maybe wrestling with like the emotions of it, thinking about this idea of like kind of our bodies
I
leading our spirit or vice versa.
I actually remember when I was in college praying a prayer over and over and over again. I mean, usually a part of my praying every day was, I need to feel your presence. And so I think there is, I think particularly when we're young, I think that maybe when we don't know how to separate our emotions from
Yeah.
everything else,
Yeah.
it's easy to say, well, I don't feel anything right now. I have felt God. At a camp or at a worship service sometime, I have felt God's presence, and I
Right.
want that every day. I want that constantly. Yes, yeah, of
Yeah.
course I do. But probably there was. I don't know when this happened either, but it probably was about the same time I figured out that legalism thing.
Yeah.
It's looking back that I go, it's been a long, long time since I prayed that prayer. So maybe it's living life long enough that I really have become convinced that God is here, whether I feel Him or not. So when I was in college, I mean, I was working on a degree that's similar to what our Christian Studies degree is here. I was doing the studying. I knew in my mind that I'd reasoned it out. God is here, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what I feel. But I was at the point where I felt like I needed to feel it. I needed to sense His presence every single day. But at some point along the way, I think I really did become convinced God, God is here. So it's fine for me to sit here with Him, whether I feel Him or not.
Yeah, that's good.
He is here, and so I wish I could kind of, if I had it on a timeline, maybe I could figure out more how that happened
Yeah.
in regard to me. But I think a lot of it's just living life, living a life consistently over the long haul of living for God, believing that God is, and believing that He's made a way through Jesus for me to be connected to Him.
Yeah.
And so I have that connection. So I'm sitting in that connection
Yeah.
every day, whether I feel it or not. And another way that's kind of connected together for me, maybe I talked to my students about this in my biblical interpretation class before we get to the end
Yeah.
at some point. But a number of years ago, I don't know how long this was, but it's probably 7, 8, maybe more years ago than now. I picked up Donald Whitney's little book, Praying the Bible.
Okay.
Revolutionized my life. So
Yeah.
I was one of those prayers that Jesus talked about that was more comfortable with public praying
Yeah.
than with private praying.
Yeah.
So I could do it pretty good in public because I'd had a lot of experience, been served on a ministry staff of the church, so had those opportunities and did it. I think I did it pretty well.
Yeah.
But when I was alone with God, I just really struggled with, what did I really say? So I prayed, but I prayed the same things
Yeah.
the same way every time I prayed for somebody or something. I prayed it all exactly the same. That little book set me free in that regard. So it helped me to set the patterns that for the Psalms to be in my life. But I'm often taking my reading of the Psalms and very quickly turning them into prayers.
Wow.
So using what I'm finding in the Bible, it's not when I'm doing my big time study of
Right.
the Bible,
Right.
but using the words of Scripture to turn back in prayer to God. So that's helped me to learn how to pray. And this is from somebody who's spent, I've spent nearly all of my life focused on following God. And, but here, very, very late in life, really feel like I'm just beginning to learn how to pray.
Wow.
So that's a part of the discipline too. But if I'm checking boxes, I don't even know how to check those boxes
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
because it's all blended together. It's really a much more cohesive piece for me now. My spiritual disciplines are running all over each other,
Yeah.
and I that feels chaotic a bit at times, but I've gotten comfortable with that chaos, I guess.
Yeah. That's so like it's so refreshing too, just hearing you talk about how you feel like you're really like finally hitting a stride, after all of these years and going through the legalism of it. And, it's kind of like reminds me of like, I think it's Romans 2, like the letter kills, but the spirit gives life, this idea of like legalism becoming the thing when you're totally, you know, really forgetting or forsaking the principle, which is, nearness with God. Right. And, our own formation. And so, yeah, because I think just putting my rewinding to when I was a college student. I know you talked about when you were a college student. Our students now, it's like they're living in a culture that says you're at your peak now. Your mid-20s are it. And I think sometimes we forget that, man, it is a long life with Jesus, and a long road. And we don't often peak in our 20s, we peak much later in life.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing because God is constantly shaping us and continuing to form us through these practices. So,
Eugene Peterson talked about a long obedience in the same direction.
wow.
So I think I understand that now.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that when he first said it. So
Yeah.
I don't remember which of his books he said it in the first time, but I think I've more and more identified with that kind of expression about what our development in Christ is really all about. It is a long obedience in the same direction. And it doesn't mean that my obedience with Christ has always been perfect. I've not followed him perfectly at any point in my life.
Yeah.
But that long obedience in the same direction. Our culture knows nothing of that kind of
Yeah.
I think that term speaks of the discipline of the Christian life. So that's what I still am trying to put into practice. This obedience that's, again, it's not a string
Right.
of perfection, but an obedience that my parents helped me to kind of set in motion, and my grandparents had a part of that too. I think it started when I was 8 or 9, and I committed my life to Christ. He saved me. That started that obedience, and I'm looking back I won't say how long, but this long time of really working to follow him.
Wow.
So I still look in now and I see these areas that still need chiseling off, that he's still working on in me. But and I know I've got this sinful nature that could come in and mess me up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I try to even carry that, without a sense of arrogance about where I am spiritually. But yeah, I've got some patterns that started a long time ago, and they've mostly moved
Yeah.
in this direction of following Christ. And so I'm thankful. I'm thankful for those patterns that, my parents probably didn't know any more about how to do this as parents than I did when I was, when my kids were little. But they put me in the Bible. They, we were praying. They were modeling for me what it means to wrestle with how to put faith into life every day. So they weren't in ministry, so they were out in the world doing hard work from day to day, and they modeled what it meant to live in a Christian way. That
Yeah.
and then they had us in church where we had others who were investing in us and teaching us, and so I'm just thankful for that pattern that kind of set the direction for my life. That thankfully I didn't run from, but I embraced, and it's been the pattern of my life. So.
That's so good. Just want to thank you again for sitting down and sharing a little bit of your story. I think that's so encouraging, and hopefully you guys got some good nuggets of wisdom there. And yeah, just thank you again for sharing. I appreciate you being here. And
Thank you for inviting me.
yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Okay.